If you were trying to compete with Amazon, this is going to make you cry.
I don't know if Amazon actually does that.
If you want to achieve something out of the ordinary, if you want to do something extraordinary, then you're going to have to do something different.
Man, I could give you 1,000 in like an hour.
I'm spending too much time with you.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to an episode of Upside, our weekly podcast, which is either on a Wednesday, probably on a Wednesday, nearly always on a Wednesday, but sometimes on a Friday. Today, we are going to talk about Andy Jassy's new statement. Is that what it's called?
This is letter to shareholders.
It's letter to shareholders. Zamir very diligently reads it every year when it comes out. Is it every year?
Yeah, it's released. No, it's released every year.
It's an annual letter. Okay. Yeah. So Zamir reads them every year. And then I find out from him what he said in it because I'm too lazy to read it. And so, right, Zamir, let's talk through this one. How do you want to do it?
Okay, so this letter was always written by Jeff Bezos. When he stepped back, Andy Jassy took over. Every April it's released. I look forward to reading it because it actually tells us a lot. So previously, it's told us a lot about their performance metrics. Mm-hmm. But this one has a slightly different flavor to it, so it's quite interesting. I think it's worth pointing out there are the common things we always see and have seen from the very first letter. So customer obsession, innovation, long-term thinking, those ethos at the center of everything, and again they feature heavily in this letter.
Okay, do you want to talk through those or do you want to skip through those?
I think we can skip through most of them, but I think there's one point that it's just extraordinary that they just kind of keep on this one point. It's like, if you were trying to compete with Amazon, this is going to make you cry, because he basically says he wants this year their emphasis to be on improving delivery speeds, expanding selection, and reducing costs as a priority.
Yeah, which is like what they've been saying since the beginning.
And they are not happy with it. They want to get faster. That delivery time needs to come down even further.
So same day delivery, not good enough.
And we know in areas that they're doing like within several hours. Yeah. So they want to get that average down. I guess
drones are
they want to get the average down to, my understanding is, reading through this and from other bits that have been written, that 2 hours is too long, is what they're saying.
Oh, that's insane, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if there's going to be a point where Amazon shows up faster than the police.
I wonder what happens in those times.
But I did hear, actually, the police, one thing they're looking to create is this thing where, like, as soon as an emergency is called, if they know your location, they send a drone there, so they can just like
hover over,
find out what's actually going on, and like check. But I guess it's another drone race.
Amazing. Someone's sorry. This did happen to Ali, because Ali had his phone stolen twice. Can you imagine your house? You report it, and the police drone arrives and it's hovering over you, and at the same time the Amazon drone arrives with your replacement phone.
Yeah, that'd be
bunches it out of the way.
Yeah.
Okay, not a funny subject though. It was no.
But all good.
Yeah, all good. It's fine. Sorry, time has gone since between now and then and now, and we're
smiling about it now.
Now we can. Okay, so the other thing. All right. So what's really different about this letter?
Right.
And this is what I really want to talk about. This letter gets really deeply introspective in terms of cultural tones of Amazon. Yeah. It's the first time we really see this in the letter. Previous letters much more focused on, like as I said, sort of like operational metrics. Yeah. This one gets into the culture of Amazon, and I think there's quite a bit to discuss and unpack from there.
Yeah, you use my word. Let's unpack that.
I'm spending too much time with you. So that's where that's coming from. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first bit that they really focus in on, which is why culture. And Andy Jassy, I don't know if he coined this phrase or it is him, but he's calling it YQ.
Yeah. All right, so it's about, just let's unpack the unpacking. YQ, what do they really mean? What does he mean? Why culture?
Yeah, he's talking about that culture where they're asking. So I've got a little bit of what he actually
What's he saying in particular? Yeah.
Amazon is a why company. We ask why and why not constantly. It helps us to deconstruct problems, get to the root causes, understand blockers, and unlock doors that might previously have seemed impenetrable. Amazon has an unusually high quotient of this YQ. Let's call it letter YQ. And it frames the way we think about everything that we do.
which is cool, right? I respect that. Have you seen SAS Rogue Heroes?
I have, yes.
So you know that scene where Paddy Mayne is training the French soldiers, and he's telling them like, you need to be asking why. Why are we doing this? Because in this company, if something goes wrong, you need to be able to achieve the mission.
You need to be able to adjust, right? If you don't know the why, you won't be able to because you don't know why you're doing it. Yeah.
And this is a different way of looking at the same thing. It's like, but it's basically you're asking why, because why are things always done in this way? Can we do them in another way?
Yeah. And I think this why not bit as well comes into it. It's like, so if you come up with an idea, then they want to say no. If your manager or line manager wants to say no, they have to have a very good reason why not. And if they don't have a clear reason why not, they can't stop you from doing it, basically.
Just do, so you can do whatever you want.
You can, yeah. And
it's a business case.
There has to be a business case, and there's, very much they're talking about things like this is what led to Prime, this is what led to Prime Video, this is what led to AWS.
Well, you hear about this at Google, right? So Google had those like Friday afternoon sessions where like Google Maps was born and that kind of stuff, and like Gmail.
I would also point out this is probably what happened to Amazon's food delivery service, their Fire Phone, their so all the list of things that actually failed, Amazon Ticket. There's a much larger list of failures that Amazon has than it does of successes. Everyone focuses on the successes, but this is built into the culture, and they're like, it's fine, we'll just fail fast at something. If it doesn't work, what's that whole thing about a door being two ways, right? Yeah, I can walk it through this door, but I can walk back through the door if I don't like it, if it doesn't work. Exactly. So why am I worried about it?
I do like it. One is a philosophy, and I do feel like we do this a lot. We fail very quickly on some things. Like we try a lot of things out. I don't know if Amazon actually does that. I mean, they do. Yes, they do these projects, but some of the more detailed things that we see, and the question to like why something exists isn't always logically answered.
I agree with you, and I do think that this is done at, I suspect, a rather selective basis, that people get to do these ideas, because I think like any large organization, there's only so many new ideas they can take. Well, any organization, there's only so many ideas you can do. I think that actually one of the things that Andy Jassy talks about in this is keeping or maintaining the startup culture and the idea of encouraging people to take risks. And I think this is something that most founders can relate to, right? We take risks. Something that we instill in the culture of our team. And when we're talking about risks, we're not talking about doing stupid things. We're talking about, look, if you want to achieve something out of the ordinary, if you want to do something extraordinary, then you're going to have to do something different. And doing something different comes with risks. Yeah. And you can't be afraid of taking risks. So this isn't about being stupid with people's money or the company's money. And ultimately, I think you can turn it on its head. And that's how we would normally look at it. It's like, well, if we don't take the risk and do it, someone else might do, and they're going to win the upside.
Yeah. Did you see what we did there? See that?
You like that? I got that in.
You got it. Well done. Okay, so all right, what else does he talk about? What else is new in there?
Okay, so the next one I think you're going to really like. And again, I think this is quite an interesting one. It's reducing bureaucracy. Yeah. Right. Do you want to talk around how he did this?
Muskian. That's so Doge. What's it? Doge? Whatever it's called. Doge. Reducing bureaucracy. Okay, let's hear about this, because
I want you to read this, because it gets even more Muskian when you read it.
Okay, fine. Let's hear about
this. He set up an email box for it.
An inbox.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, perfect.
He was like, email me any bureaucracies and I'll deal with them. Something along those lines.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I respect someone who is trying to do this. They talk about being customer centric.
Yeah.
My complaint is going to be Amazon sellers are also customers.
Absolutely. And, who are you asking?
Yeah, and if there's bureaucracy in there,
we've got some suggestions for you.
How many people do we deal with on a weekly basis who have hit an issue because of Amazon's internal bureaucracy?
Right? I'm sure we've got people listening in here now just laughing their heads off. It's like, all right, Amazon, Andy Jassy is asking for ideas to reduce bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Sellers, how many ideas can we come up with?
Yeah, not even this. Okay, so in his thing, he says, we received 1,000 emails.
Internal. This is from their internal
emails. Man, I could give you 1,000 in like an hour.
Shall we see how many ideas? Anyone that's listening to this has got an idea on bureaucracy can reduce. We will send these to Andy Jassy.
Yeah. What's your inbox address, Andy?
I'll find out from this. I'm sure it's not in the letter, but I'm sure there is a way to find a way to get this. Maybe not to him directly, but maybe there is a way.
Yeah, I mean, look, a simple
Actually,
one is
you know what? We could.
verification teams. Just don't get me
I
started
knew
on
this was gonna be your
verification
I
teams.
knew this was going to be a starting
How
point.
many of the brands that we deal with are stuck unjustifiably because of verification issues? So many, and that's such a heavily siloed team that like no one can look. They're like the Gestapo.
And I have one simple question: why not? Why can you not make it simpler? Why can you not make it better?
Yeah.
It is causing so much pain.
It doesn't be a binge session.
No, it's not.
like
But I think it's a good point to make, right? Because they're saying that they're talking about YQ's why. It's in his letter. This is a really key point. And I think actually we should start a small campaign on this. Just going, right, why not? Why not make this simpler?
Why not Amazon? Hashtag why not Amazon?
Yeah, whatever it is, let's just start pushing something and go. No, look, why not? Here are our lists. These are our top 5 pain points in terms of bureaucracy with Amazon from a seller's perspective. See if we can maybe get something behind it.
That'd be cool. That'd be awesome. Okay, cool. Challenge accepted.
Cool. The next point on it is very much around that startup mentality and being the world's largest startup and the fact that they want to build this mindset for it. Do you buy into that? Do you think Amazon still actually have that?
Startup mentality?
Startup mentality. This idea of how they create these siloed small teams that are supposedly makes them continue to behave like a startup.
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I'm sure there's stuff in there that is very like startup-y, but the amount of times I hear about these bureaucratic things that you don't hear about in a startup. Like a startup doesn't have bureaucracy by definition, right? And you hear about if you have to get rid of bureaucracy by definition, you probably aren't a startup anymore. Having the mentality is a different thing though. So maybe, I mean, they're trying to do these innovative things, which is great. I respect that. That's very startup-y.
They're doing innovative things, but I think they don't do it in the. I mean, again, I suppose this really comes down to a startup, right? Because you can be a highly capitalized startup, right? So maybe that's the way that they're just playing with that definition of startup. So yeah,
I think we land on a neutral position on that one. Like pro con, that's probably neutral.
Okay, fine. So we're neutral. We're neutral on the startup side. There are arguments for and against.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yet to be proven.
Right. The final point that does come up, and it's not a surprise, but it's a really important one, is their generative AI focus.
Yeah.
Now, before you start going and start talking about Alexa, or don't talk about Rufus, because you know that will just wind me up. This, I don't think, is what they're actually talking about. Now, in the letter, he specifies that there's over 1,000 AI projects kind of going on. I'm sure Rufus and Alexa are 2 of those. But I think the bit that most people aren't aware of, that they should be aware of, is when it comes to chip production.
Yes. Okay, this is interesting. Chip production.
Yeah.
What's their chip called?
Their chip is called Trainium 2.
Trainium 2.
Yes.
Is it one of those where you like added 2 at the end because you had Trainium 1 and like then you must have improved, so therefore this one you've got is the improved version?
I think it's version 2, because unless there's other reference. I'm not actually sure what Trainium is. There you go. It's just the chip.
Okay, it's just the chip. All
go.
Right. So yeah, tell us about Trainium.
The reason why this should get people's attention is ultimately Amazon, along with Microsoft and Google, when they're building their AI tools, are required to buy a crazy amount of chips from another tech company.
Well, and then they just want to take it in-house, right?
Yeah. So do you want to mention who the other tech company is?
NVIDIA,
right. So Jensen Huang, NVIDIA, whose valuation is just has soared and has kind of fallen back a little bit now.
Hashtag Trump, but yeah.
Yeah. The reason this is so important is because, again, that whole valuation is based on people continuing to buy that NVIDIA chip or the latest NVIDIA chips. And a company like Amazon, and I suspect Microsoft and Google are also thinking this, but particularly Amazon are pretty much putting themselves out as a stall going, well, we'll do that in the short term, but it makes complete sense for us, just as we did with AWS, just as we've done with Prime Video,
AWS,
is to go and build our own chip, so that we're no longer having
dependency on anyone else.
Put this money into another ecosystem; it stays in our own.
Yeah,
and that's very much what they're doing. And I think it's a really important point. It has the potential to change landscapes. I also think that Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and the others are probably going to be working to make their AI more efficient, which is also going to have an impact too. So I think that there are 2 sides to this that both, I'm sure, Jensen Huang and NVIDIA are focused on and aware of.
Interesting. Trainium 2, better than Trainium 1. Cool. Anything else in this letter from
There's a lot,
AJ?
but I think those are the highlights, and I do encourage people to go and read it. It's published every April, and you can go in. And what's really nice is at the bottom of the letter, they always publish the very first letter that they wrote to investors.
Oh, really?
So, back in 1995. So that first letter, 96 when it was published. So you can read the first letter, but you can go back and read through each of the letters. And as I said, if you go back and read the last sort of like 3 or 4 of Andy Jassy's letters, the flavor has definitely changed in this one, and it is much more on culture and the internal kind of view of Amazon. And I'm curious as to why that's happened. I'm curious now to see what happens over the next year as a result of that. He talks about other things like the proportion of doers and actioners compared to managers. And he hasn't said, we're going to get rid of managers. He said we're simply going to increase the number of reports into managers so that we have more people doing things than actually managing people. So there's a lot of little bits in there, and it'll be really interesting to see how that impacts and changes Amazon over the next 12 months, and then see what the letter next year, if it continues along this theme or goes back. But I think, look, ultimately, as sellers, anyone that's operating in the Amazon ecosystem, any insight we can get to their leadership's views and strategy and what they're thinking can only be beneficial. So as I said, I always encourage people to read these letters. I think they can be quite useful, quite powerful, especially because we've got 25, 26 of these now. So there's some good trend analysis you can do there.
Cool. The saga continues. Check it out next year and see if anything changed. I know Zamir will be.
I will be. I'll have the highlights for you. Don't worry. Crib sheet.
But yeah, so let's wrap things up there. If you made it this far, at the end of this video, you're going to see a recommendation for another video, probably somewhere around here. So trust the algorithm and just check them out. I'm sure they're great. Stay awesome, team.
One love.
One love.
Hi, team. We drop a new episode every Wednesday, so please like, follow, subscribe. They're on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts from. We would really appreciate if you do this. It really helps us out. Thank you.